A 12-man crew vessel carrying 150,000 metric tons of crude oil seized on Nigerian waters by a pipeline surveillance company and the Joint Task Force Operation Delta Safe last week has been destroyed.
The whole idea of destroying the vessel is to send a strong message to all would-be investors in illegality in Nigerian waters that this is what they are going to face if they so wish to tow this type of business. I can confirm that the Ali Riza has been rendered useless. Further actions will render it completely unusable. The essence of this is to send a strong message to both locals and internationals that where you partner to work against Nigeria, this is the fate your assets will meet, and also the government is not going to take it lightly with you. So you can see how serious we are. The partnership we have is not just about us, Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited. It's about empowerment from the federal government as much as the NNPC Limited and then the Nigerian security forces. And more so, would also like to give credit to the new administration that has continued from where the previous administration stopped to fight this scourge that has been draining us of our God-given wealth.
Also, the Commander, Joint Task Force Operation Delta Safe, Rear Admiral Olusegun Ferreira, describes the development as a demonstration of the Chief of Defense Staff's renewed mandate to end oil theft and illegal activities in the Niger Delta region of Nigeria. Our Rice correspondent, Uvieteme George, reports.
The rogue vessel MT Tura 2, we are told, was initially called MT Ali Riza Bay, but has undergone a name change after escaping from law enforcement agencies in the past. Somehow, luck ran out of the vessel and crew when it was arrested off the coast of Escravos River on Friday, the 7th of June, and brought to the waters of Oporuza in Baramatu Kingdom, Warri Southwest Council area of Delta State. The Commander, Joint Task Force Operation Delta Safe, Rear Admiral Olusegun Ferreira, is pleased with the arrest.
On Friday, largely based on credible intelligence, that this vessel MT Tura 2 was involved in theft of crude oil from an abandoned wellhead off the coast of Escravos, and the vessel was promptly arrested and brought to this location for all to see. I have here with me representatives from the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, representatives of the pipeline security companies known as Tantita. I have my officers here from OPDS and other agencies. All of these eventually portray the synergy in our operations, which has been the directives from higher authority. When a vessel involved in such of crime is arrested, the suspects are taken into custody, investigations are ongoing, the product on board is taken for test by NNPC or DPR, and thereafter, once the investigation is concluded, the next appropriate actions are taken. They could be prosecuted in court, and of course, the vessel will be handled in accordance with extant directives.
Could this be one of the reasons Nigeria has been struggling to meet its OPEC quota of 1.7 million barrels or 1.8 million barrels per day of oil production? Captain Waredi Eniswo is the Executive Director, Technical and Operations of Tantita Security Services Nigeria Limited.
Since 2013 or so, that was when it first came into light. It's operated by a company called Holab Maritime Services, and it was brought into Nigerian waters as Ali Riza Bay, registered in Togo. At some point it was apprehended, and somehow, somewhere, it became mysterious. Somehow, we don't know how it got out. But anyway, the moment it got out, it has changed its name to Tura 2. But it changed its name in a very, very criminal manner, in the sense that it did not approach any official authority or government authority to change its name. It just got a bunch of intelligent guys that manipulated and changed its name in various international electronic platforms as Tura 2. From then, it started operating illegally in several waters, right from Cameroon to Ghana, but mainly loading in Nigeria for even STS operations to ships that are foreign. The partners of the companies are both local and international, and it's a very good thing that NNPC made a decision that they're not going to tolerate this type of acts in our waters. And as you can see, our own job is provision of intelligence, both electronic and human, to the government security agencies, and whom have done very, very well to bring this ship to book after nearly 1 decade. At the moment, it's got about 150,000 tons, and as usual, the vessel is likely going to be destroyed.
The JTF hopes to conclude investigations soon, but many would like to know what will happen to a vessel with a penchant for changing names whenever it's caught by security agencies. Ofieteme George, Arise News.
Joining us now on this morning show to discuss oil theft in Nigeria and what the Nigerian government must continue to do to end it is His Royal Majesty King Bubaraye Dakolo, Chairman, Bayelsa Traditional Rulers Council and author of the book, The Riddle of the Oil Thief. Good morning, Your Majesty, and thank you very much for joining us on the morning show.
Thank you so much.
Well, Your Majesty, this is the second time we're having this rather dramatic event of the Nigerian Navy saying they intercepted a vessel off the coast of Nigeria. The other time, in November 2022, it was a vessel called the Heroic Eden. And then this time around, we have this case of escravos. Now, when these vessels are being loaded, as someone who has researched the subject and written on it, where are our security agencies and all these government agencies who are talking about synergy, deployment of technology? Why is it that they don't know when vessels are being loaded until they are off the coast of Nigeria? And then why destroy the evidence? They destroyed the vessel the last time in November 2022. They've done exactly the same thing this time around. And yet they are talking about prosecution. If they have destroyed the evidence, what else would they have to present in court?
Well, Ruben Abati, you've said it all. First and foremost, I don't know why the law enforcement does not know when they load this crude until it leaves the terminus or terminal where it is loaded and started making its way. That has to be a question for law enforcement to answer. However, just as you said, last year there was an experience where a particular vessel was apprehended with our crude oil. And then, of course, a few days ago, another one, the MT Tura 2, with 150,000 metric tons. To put it clearly, that is about 1,600,000 barrels. And that amounts to well over $100 million, which runs into billions of naira. That is the amount or the value of what was inside there. That is also approximately what Nigeria produces in a day. Okay, about 1.8 million barrels. So that's about what Nigeria produces in a day. It takes a while to load the whole of that volume. And so definitely it must have been loaded somewhere that is an authorized loading bay. And so the authorities of NNPC were supposed to know, and I think they know. And then, of course, usually in all of those places, there are law enforcement, at the terminus or the terminals. So definitely all of these agencies knew that this was taking place. However, let's give benefit of doubt to the establishment that arrested it, and then to the JTF that has also arrested the people. But setting that particular vehicle or vessel ablaze is completely out of 2023. It is something that should happen in maybe 1440 or 1450. This is 2023. We are talking about ozone layer depletion. We are talking about Nigeria not having all the money we should have for our welfare. And then you burn off billions of naira, multi-millions of dollars worth of crude, and then in the process poison us. It's completely unacceptable. It is something that has to stop. The federal government, the presidency has to issue a quick order that they should stop burning or wasting our resources in that manner. And in the process, for those of us in the Niger Delta, as you burn it, you are polluting us, you are destroying us, you are killing us, you are destroying the entire environment. What is the difference between any other vandal and then the authorized vandals in this particular case? Because setting that quantity of crude oil ablaze was as good as asphyxiating the entire Niger Delta. And you may not believe it, but several persons are going to die out of asthma and such diseases in the next couple of days. That is a fact about it. And then, of course, if you want to properly prosecute, there's no excuse to say they changed name somewhere and then they changed name somewhere and so on and so forth. If you know they changed name and you have grabbed the evidence, it is for you to follow international standard manner of investigating and prosecuting. Going in this crude manner of setting the vehicle ablaze is not good enough. Of course, the vehicle is going to eventually sink and be in that waterway and constitute nuisance to fishermen. Of course, the fishermen have to be Niger Delta fishermen. And also constitute nuisance to fishermen, constitute nuisance to those who use the waterways forever. So I think that that was not necessary.
Okay. I would also like to ask you, why is it that we've not been able to crack these big men that do all of this? Because just like the other incidents we've had, we parade a couple of people that were in the vessel, which are not the real people doing this, which are just those that work for the people doing this. Why is it that we don't know the big men that exist that are doing all of this in Nigeria? Is it that we don't know the local partners to the other foreigners? Is it that we don't have adequate facts on them? When are we going to take one big man in this country perpetrating this, not all these workers?
Well, I can tell you for free that that vehicle was burnt because it was cheaper to burn it than to rein in the oil thief that is behind it all. Usually what Nigeria has done in the last several decades is to parade a young, helpless, improperly educated, jobless youth from the Niger Delta as the typical thief. But I argue that such a person shouldn't be called a thief. He should be rehabilitated. He belongs to a place where you have to educate him, reorientate him, and make him a patriotic Nigerian. He is a victim of oil thieves. Today you may need to hear that the real thief of oil is someone who has a yacht, is someone who has a golf course, is someone who cannot sleep a night in the Niger Delta because of mosquitoes and insecurity, is someone who has properties in London, in Banana Island, in Abuja, in Frankfurt, in New York City. Those are the thieves. They have a lot of money. You may want to imagine the Joint Task Force for Prevention of Oil Thievery and Vandalism in the Niger Delta came as far ago as 1998. That is 25 years ago. And I can tell you for free that go to Krikri prison, go to Port Harcourt prison, go to Kogi prison, go to Kuje prison. You won't find any big oil thief. None. And even for their boys, when they are caught, they find a way and just dye it, you know. And so even this one, now that the vessel is burnt and the crude burnt and so on and so forth, after once or twice, even Rufai won't talk about it again. So that is the game, that is the story. The authorities know clearly who are behind it. The last time, I think someone came on TV and showed clearly where all the stolen oil goes to. This particular oil, if you had allowed it, it would have gone to either Britain or gone to America or gone to China or gone to India. They go to these places, you know, these vehicles are big enough, the world knows them. So everyone that is in authority knows them, except for maybe Rufai and Abati and myself. But they are well known. So those are the real oil thieves. The subsidy thieves, the subsidy racketeers. They're not saying, okay, you want subsidy to go. What of those who have been milking the system for the last several decades? Who brought in one shipload in, collected money for 10 shiploads, who brought no shipload, perfected papers and collected money for 20 shiploads. And the racketing has been going on and on and on. And so if you just stop so-called oil subsidy and no one is going in for it, what have you done? Billions have been stolen. Nigerians have been fleeced. That is the game. It goes on. Those in authority, I can bet you, they know who does it and who does not do it. And the reason why they prefer to present the face of a young, uneducated, unemployed person from the Niger Delta as a thief is to distract the world, because it looks more menacing and more interesting to see someone that has no shot, that is beating cancer every day in the name of crude oil theft, a few jerry cans, and then people who take shiploads. You can imagine a group of persons who are taking away what Nigeria produces in a day in one ship. And the Nigerian authorities want to pretend that they don't know who are doing it. They don't know the terminal where it was loaded. Don't tell me that again. I don't want to hear that. Of course, you may also need to go and read the book, The Riddle of the Oil Thief. The whole story is there. It's a riddle. It's a game where you distract the entire world to believing that someone else is the one that is stealing the oil when the main man is feeding fat and walking about free. In which country, in which home, will someone set his village, his house ablaze because there is a rat inside? Will set his house ablaze because a snake has entered inside? It's never done. Why should that vessel be set ablaze?
Well,
the reason is obvious, so that they don't get to the big men who are behind oil theft in Nigeria. This is a good example to tell the entire country that the oil thieves are big men, big enough. International governments of foreign countries are involved, NNPC is involved, and many more are involved. And you know them all as well. You don't need to get it out of my mouth, but these are the facts about it.
Well, Your Majesty, well, will your reaction be different? Because
Yes,
you calculated the cost of the crude oil in the vessel. Will your reaction be different if before destroying the vessel, you know, the crude oil was evacuated by the Nigerian authorities? And because you raised concern about asthma and pollution. That just clarification. But then
so
the question I wanted to ask you is about this riddle of the oil thief. What's your assessment of the role of these private contractors in helping to resolve that riddle? Because now we have private contractors who are monitoring the waters, and, you know, in this particular case, Tantiana, you know, is claiming the credit for helping the Nigerian government to intercept this particular vessel stealing crude oil. What do you think of the role of those, you know, non-state actors helping to monitor? You think they can resolve the riddle?
Well, for me, it underscores how low the Nigerian state has descended, where it seems to have lost faith in our law enforcement to the level where you want private, perhaps not so well-trained hands to help you do the job. It is so because, first and foremost, our economy is in tatters. Economy is in tatters. There is no job for people normally, And so everyone wants to look at, how to make a living out of everything. And so, well, you want to engage people in that manner. First and foremost, if the government of Nigeria were able to get the economy of Nigeria working to the point where it was $1 to a naira, I can tell you that people will not want to go and vandalize oil facilities or oil installations. So I think that we should work towards that. If the Nigerian economy becomes robust, I can tell you that most persons will not want to get interested in what they are being contracted to do today. What the Nigerian state ought to do is to equip the Navy, give them more funds, equip law enforcement, give them more funds and more training to be professional. Bringing in hands that are not as trained, so to speak, to come and do a job meant for the Navy, for instance, is an insult to the Nigerian state and an insult to the Navy. I think that the Nigerian state will benefit more if they pump in some more resources to the Navy and give them the marching order that if we hear this, we see this, this will be the action or the reaction. And I think that they can do that so very well. So that is the way to go. Right now, what you are seeing is an aberration that shouldn't be seen, shouldn't be told. They should actually have been faceless. The best they should have done would have been to give intelligence, so to speak, to the official law enforcement group, in this particular case, perhaps the Navy or the Joint Task Force, for instance. That is the way to go. But unfortunately, we came down the spiral to that point because the economy has actually been nosediving. I hope that this new administration will be able to take back the naira to be equivalent to the dollar so that young men and women of Nigeria will have hope and do other things instead of getting involved in things that ordinarily they shouldn't get involved in. You asked if I will have thought differently if the crude oil in the vehicle, in the vessel, was first evacuated. Yes, that will have been the first thing to do. The wise thing to do will have been to remove the crude oil first and foremost. But why should you even set the vessel ablaze? Have you taken those persons to a competent court of law somewhere and they've been found guilty? Okay? And then the court has ordered that the vehicle be destroyed? What you have done is like putting tires around the neck of a young woman or a young man who took some bread somewhere or whatever, and the accuser of stealing, and you put tires around the person's neck and set the person ablaze. This is what they call jungle justice before the entire world. This is where we were about 100 years ago. Unfortunately, it is seeming like that is where we have gotten back to today. So I do not subscribe to jungle justice, taking laws into anybody's hands because you are given the authority to contain oil theft. This is not, in my mind, this is not the way to contain oil theft. Oil thievery is perpetrated by institutions that are well known in this country, groups that are well known in this country, to big, rich, robust institutions and human beings, and then with international collaboration. Ask me, do you think any Niger Delta youth, for instance, will have access to empty Turatu or empty Vanessa of some years ago or the African prize of some years ago? Dugout canoes and small distance here and there, how much can they collect? But unfortunately, I believe even you think that those boys are the thieves. They are just a mere distraction arranged by the real oil thieves whose skin shine of Vaseline, shine and looking so nice, whose voices sound so well, and then of course, who will hardly want to sleep in the Niger Delta overnight. And I tell you today for free that anybody that is able to sleep in the Niger Delta overnight should not be called an oil thief. He cannot be an oil thief. He could just be a victim of oil thievery, Mr. Abati.
Okay, a couple of things. Number one, so I'm just throwing ideas around. Do you think sort of like the Kimberley process that they instituted with diamonds will work with oil? Since we have a lot of international, bodies that are also part of all of this, that are taking our resource and all of that, do you think, sort of that process can work with oil? And secondly, I glistened a bit when you talked about empty African pride. And we remember that situation way back in 2004, if my memory serves me right, where the ship, 30,000 metric tons, was impounded under the naval care, or the care of the Navy, and the ship was missing. And I remember how many top naval officers were tried in that matter. Some were exonerated, some were found guilty. But since then, we've had this recurring case and this, like you said, recurring riddle. So, sort of like 20 years down the line, we've not been able to crack this. That's the riddle. It didn't start today. How can we crack this riddle? Is it that these men are untouchable, that nobody can touch them, or they are bigger than the states?
Okay, the first thing to do is, I think that you may need to get a copy of the riddle of the oil thief, and you read it from cover to cover. You get the entire prescription, because I can't say all of it just here. But yes, getting that international collaboration and ensuring that the searchlight is around Nigeria will help. Because that way, they will also ensure that their own people who are involved in foreign countries are brought to book. If you remember the Halliburton scandal, in spite of all the long list of people that were involved, 88 Nigerians, including damaging directors of NNPC, and those who have served this country as secretary to the federal government, as heads of government, and so on and so forth, as former governors, and so on and so forth. Name them. 88 of them. I have the long list. Not one of them went to jail. Okay? Not one of them went to jail. But back there in the U.S., almost all those who were involved, who were indicted, went to jail. As a matter of fact, they were made, the Halliburton itself was made to pay some billions of dollars. And some of those dollars were brought to Nigeria as compensation for our agony. And do you know what happened? 4 SANs stole that money again, and they didn't go to jail. So that is the story. The story here is that the authorities of Nigeria at different levels know the thieves. Know the thieves. Some of them are part of the thieves. And that is why no one wants to bring them to book, and that is why they are not in jail. If Nigeria is serious today, I can tell you that oil thievery could stop within 2 weeks. We can do it if the Nigerian state is ready. Because, you see, at some level, just check the way it is done. Let's look at the MT Tura 2. It went to an official loading bay somewhere and stayed there for a while. Because, you see, my primary school was State School 1, Ibulia Dikibo, okay, at Okrika. When I was going to school in those days, in the 70s, behind my school was the jetty, the NPRC jetty at Okrika. The Leme Petroleum Refinery jetty at Okrika was just by my school. And we saw the ships coming to load and leave. And of course, when they come, they stay for a while before they load to their capacity and go. It is not a 1 minute thing. It's not like one fly going to urinate somewhere. It takes a while. And those places are manned by law enforcement. From EFCC to DSS to Army to Navy to Air Force to everybody. To what do you call them? NCDC. Everybody is there. So, you cannot tell me that they didn't see this thing going on. So the Nigerian state is playing ostrich. They just want me to come and talk for nothing and want El-Rufai to have high blood pressure. please don't have high blood pressure. If the government is ready to stop oil thievery today, it will stop. Some big interests in government from the 80s to the 90s particularly, and of course in recent times, almost everybody's in the game, except myself and you perhaps. So, it is clear. Let them use an international collaboration system, beam the searchlights, but for me, I think that the Navy can do a good job. The JTF can do a good job. If those above these particular establishments are ready to do a good job. Because yes, if you tell Rear Admiral Ferreira that this is what you want, that is what he's going to do. Yes, that is what he's going to do. He's so trained that if you say this is what you want and you're above him, that is what he's going to do. So whatever outcome we've been getting in the last few decades is what the Nigerian state wanted. Mark my words, it is what the Nigerian state wanted. It is what the federal government of Nigeria wanted. That is what we are getting. And of course, you know that all these monies, they don't put them in Ghana must go bags. They put them in banks. Banks in Nigeria, through central bank, wire them to the Swiss accounts, wire them to the Hong Kong bank, and so on and so forth. So you can follow the trail. I mean, what is EFCC doing? So they should tell it to the dogs. They shouldn't tell it to me. And I believe that when you read the riddle of the oil thief, they won't tell it to you as well, because you will know clearly that this is just a game, and we are here made to be distracted for nothing.
Well, so many solutions have been proposed. Some people have said, deploy technology, use satellite imaging, and you'll be able to solve the problem. But you are saying that, look, there's still that individual element in it, political will to solve the problem. We have a new president, President Tinubu. One of the things is, he will have to deal with is this big elephant in the room about oil theft. What will you recommend to him personally? Because it looks like from what you have said,
well, what I will tell the
central.
president of Nigeria, yes, that is the first thing. In fact, that is the only thing. If the president is ready to stop oil thievery, it will stop. If it does not stop, it is because he doesn't want it to stop. Because it is when he says, I want it to stop. I mean, ask people. I am a member of 38 regular corps. Okay? I was a Burmese. Ask my juniors. They know. If I say stop, they know I mean it and you will stop. If Mr. President says he wants it to stop, and he tells the CDS, for instance, that he wants it to stop, it stops. I can bet you that it will stop. So it is when that desire to stop it comes that technology and every other thing will follow. But I tell you that the other distraction for the low level, for instance, is the fact that the economy is not an economy to be proud of. So if I am as good as dead, for instance, and like myself, I'm actually within 500 meters radius of the most polluting gas flare in the entire universe, in the entire Milky Way. It's just a stone's throw from here. So if someone lives in a place where pipelines are passing between his legs, for instance, where NNPC and oil company workers are using sophisticated way to steal crude oil, and where maybe they are giving the equipment and sponsor to do a few things, when the economy is so bad, when they are not as aware of the damage they are causing to themselves and the environment and the world, they may be distracted. So, is the president ready to fix the economy? The economy is also fixable. It's not rocket science. It is about getting our best. And you must know that Nigerians are about the best in this world. Go to America, look for the most complicated places. You will see a black man, and that black man is a Nigerian. Go to England, look for the most complicated places where the normal Igbo people are not able to function. You have Nigerians. We're everywhere, the best doctors in this world, the best engineers. Go to NASA, you have Nigerians. So, in terms of fixing the Nigerian economy, I think we have a Nigerian lady at WTO. the highest level in the world. We have the best young men and old men and middle-aged men and women of Nigerian origin who can fix this economy within a few months. Now, when you fix the economy, the beauty of fixing the economy is that most young people will be so gainfully engaged that they won't be distracted by the lure of someone big man throwing some few dollars at them, giving them Kalashnikovs, and then, of course, giving them drugs. You must know that at the menacing level, there is free flow of banned substances called drugs. Of course, these are supposed to be contained by a federal government agency called the NDLA. These are supposed to be contained by a federal government agency called Custom Services, Custom and Excise. They're supposed to stop it. Or perhaps the police. So when they fail, and there are guns everywhere, there are drugs everywhere, and of course, some big man brings to them a few dollars, and then the purpose-built equipment for any type of whatever you call it, then of course, they become vulnerable. And that is why I say that these guys, these smaller ones, are supposed to be rehabilitated. Let the presidency be firm about it if they're serious. And of course, there are people, even among the traditional rulers, who are ready to give support. Here I am, ready to give the right type of advice if you ask me. And there are people, like I said, I know people in the military service, those who are retiring, those who are in service, that can do this job. I mean, 2 weeks is too much. 2 weeks is actually too much.
On that note,
if the marching orders are given.
On that note, Your Majesty, thank you very much. And just before we go, someone sent me a text saying, oh, MT Heroic Udon was not the vessel that was intercepted. I never said it was. The name is MT Heroic Udon. MT Heroic Udon was the one that was intercepted in November 2022. That's what I said. The name of this current vessel is MT Dema. Okay, just for the benefit of our viewers who may not have listened very well. But thank you very much, Your Majesty, for joining us on the morning show. Thank you.